In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a rolling beta for your selected company. I'm going to do Packer. You need to do a different company than Packer, but I'm going to do Packer. The reason I do rolling betas is when you go to Yahoo Finance and see the beta they publish on the summary page for your firm, that beta is simply a beta calculated using monthly stock values over the last 5 years, or over the last 60 months. That's just one point out of many, many historically. Often that beta can be very illogical given the nature of the firm. Looking at the longer history of the firm, we can see if we are at a very unusual point in time for the company, and we need to choose a different beta than just what Yahoo Finance shows, or if their current beta actually is a very logical one. I'm doing this using Bloomberg. You will see a complicated formula up here for Bloomberg. It brings in the data for price, last price for your company. It also brings in the S&P 500. And when it does that, I can compare the two and calculate beta, and I'll show you how to do that in this. You can click in other firms if you like. If you did Walmart, you just click in the ticker. If you want to do Target, put in the ticker. If you want to do Zoom, a firm like Zoom, you'll notice many NAs because they don't start until much further into the future. You can see that we start getting stock prices for them in 2019. So pick your firm. I'm going to do Packer here. I might ask, well, does Packer go back to say 1980? There you can see they don't have the data, so we can look and see when did they start having data. If you want to go back to the longest period possible, they have it back to April 30th, 1984. So you can actually do that. Although going back to 1990 is fine. I would recommend you find a firm with at least 20 years of data so you get a good looking chart. Here I've got essentially 40 years of data, which is more than enough. So I have Packer and I have the S&P 500. A little difference here is I'm using their last price. When we did Yahoo Finance, we used what was called the adjusted price, which adjusts for when they pay dividends. That can cause some distortions. It's better to use adjusted price, but here we're using last price, so that works well in our case. So what I need here are returns. These are monthly returns. I'm going to do plus Packer, so I know that's Packer, and I'm going to do plus S&P 500, so I know. So to get a monthly return, the formula we're going to use is ending over beginning minus 1. That shows you the percentage change. We can't do that in the first month because we don't have a beginning month. So in the second month, we're going to do plus or equal, open parentheses, the stock price for this month divided by the stock price from the previous month, close parentheses, minus 1. I'm going to come up here and hit the percent. So I get negative 2.16%. I'm going to copy that over for the S&P 500. And then once I have these two highlighted, I can click on this little green bar there, so it copies it all the way down. You can do control down to look and see what's going on with this firm. So those gives me my returns. I then want to do the rolling beta. So I'm going to start with the first line of return, call that 1. The second line, I'm going to do equal that or plus that, plus 1. Then I'll copy that down. And what I'm looking for, since I'm doing 5-year rolling beta using monthly data, I want to find month 60. So there's month 60 right there. I can go Control Shift with my up arrow to get rid of those before, Control Shift down arrow. So I just have that 1. And then I'm going to do the rolling beta. So on that one, I'm going to do equal, and the formula is slope. And I'm going to come over to my company, Packer, do Control Shift up, and hit the comma, come over to the left arrow over to the market, Control Shift up, close parentheses, and there's my beta. We would expect Packer to have a beta well above 1 because they produce large durable goods like diesel engines for trucks. It's only 1.15 when they started, so it'll probably be much higher than that in other periods. I'm going to then copy that down. The next thing I'm going to do is the percentiles. I'm going to do the median, the 0.5 percentile, the 10 percentile, and the 90th percentile. So then I'm going to use the formula equal percentile, or parentheses, and I'm going to highlight all these betas. I'm going to hit the F function 4 key. If you have that, if you're on a Mac, it's a little different. I want to put dollar signs around the rolling betas. So dollar sign F68, dollar sign F492, or whatever period you have. It depends on what years you did, but if you do the Control Shift down, it will work. And then comma, I'm going to do the 50% out there. I'm going to put the dollar sign just before the row number because I want to change the column. So let me do this again. Equal percentile, open parentheses, cursor over to the left, Control Shift down. If your function 4, comma, go up to the 0.5, hit your function 4 twice, close. So I'm going to change this to 2 decimals by hitting the little comma here. So their median is 1.23, a little bit higher than the starting point. I can then copy these over by just dragging that green box over. So 10% of the time they were 0.92 or lower. 10% of the time they're 1.58 or higher. So I can copy that down. And then I can do a graph. So do the graph, you click on the first one, do Control Shift down, Control Shift right, and then I'm going to click Insert. And click on a line. I'm going to then right click on that and select data. I need to get my date, so I'm going to edit over here and come over here to the dates and do Control Shift down and hit Enter. So now I've got my dates and say OK. I'm then going to come down and edit the dates by right clicking on the x-axis and say Format Axis. You can go down to number. At the very bottom of the numbers, I just want to do Y. I only want the year. Say OK. So now I've got this in here. You can see the years look pretty good. Sometimes you'll have the same year twice because they're only doing maybe 11 months or 10 months. So every once in a while you'll get like 2013s or 2016s. But this looks pretty good. If you get it so it doesn't work like that, you can change. You right click and Format Axis. You can tell them how many months. See here, they're doing 19, so that looks good. But if you want a different amount, so you don't get a repeated year, it gets confusing if you see 2014 twice because their distance is only 11 months. But that works pretty well. I'm going to give it a title. This is Packer Rolling Beta 5 years monthly. Then you know exactly what you have. You can make that fancy by making it bold. You can change the color. I'm going to change this axis. We don't need 2 decimal places, so I'm just going to make it 1 decimal places. 1 decimal place. And then I've got this. The only thing I don't like is I never get above 2, so there's no reason for me to go up to 2.5. I never come below 0.5, so I'm going to format the axis and change it to go from 0.5 to 2. Now that can be a problem if your major is 0.2, so you might make that 0.25 so that it lines up a little better. That gives me a good sense. You can see actually here we could probably go from 0.75. Really what you want to do, or I like to do, is to fill up the space so you can really see the lines clearly. So there's their rolling beta. The last thing you can do is if you select data, we can change the titles here, edit this first one, and that is the rolling beta. Say OK. The second series is the median. next series is the 10th percentile. And then the last one is the 90th percentile. Say okay. If you can't find the graph, it's probably up at the top, could be down at the bottom. So, you have to, if you really can't find it, you can shrink until you can see it. What I like to do is now click on the graph, right click, and move it so that it's own page. So there you got the rolling beta. Now, once you finish this, the issue you're going to have, if I do Control Home, go up to the top, the issue you're going to have is the formula there and the formula there. You can see here, it's got BDH, that's Bloomberg Data Historical. And right here, it has BDH as well. So something you might want to do, so this will work on your PC at home, is those are the only two places with the Bloomberg formula. You might select everything in those columns, A, B, and C, starting with that first Bloomberg formula. Select all of those, right click and copy, and then right click and paste as values. That way you get rid of those formulas. And then when you get home, this chart will work perfectly for you. So I hope that helps. To me, it's very insightful. You can see that Packer is at a very, very low level right now. If we went into Yahoo Finance, we would see that. Like type PCAR, their ticker, there's Packer. And the page that comes up shows a beta of 0.9. So if you use the 0.9 right now for Packer, 0.9 is at that low end. It's actually below the 10th percentile. So you would be using a beta that is so low, it would make the discount rate for Packer very low. It would end up giving you an extremely high valuation for Packer. You would think the stock is really cheap. The stock isn't cheap. It's just that its beta is for some reason really low right now. One of the lowest periods it's ever had. It's probably going to come back pretty quickly to this median. So you're probably better off using something along the lines of 1.3 rather than using 0.9. But that's the approach. If I bring the Bloomberg formulas back in, we can change it to any other firm. I can put Walmart in there. If you put Walmart in there, it automatically adjusts it, but you'll notice that I have to reset the axis. So if I format axis, I can just reset. And then we'll see Walmart. Walmart's beta used to be much higher, but now that it's a big firm and very much a discount store that tends to do well in their prices, you can see their beta is very, very low. I can change it to Apple. If I change it to Apple, they do have data back that far. And there's Apple's beta. You can see it's been about 1.3. 1.3 is a pretty good beta to use for Apple. So just be aware, once you build it, you might want to save it without copying and pasting the Bloomberg formulas as values. You might save it that way, and then you might then copy and paste as values like we did. Copy, paste as values, and then save that as a different name so that you have your firm there. So either way you do it, if you're not on a Bloomberg machine, you want to have these cells as values. If you're on a Bloomberg machine, you might want to keep that formula so you can try other companies. So once you set up all these formulas and your graph, it really is a matter of just changing the ticker, and you've got a graph for any company you want to set up. Thank you.